Hello, good afternoon. It is Thursday today, the 26th of May 2022, and I am reading out of Life in Spirit, which is Harry Edwards' account of the afterlife. This was published in 1976. He says here in the sleeve notes, "This is the story of John and Mary. Any John, any Mary, brother and sister, husband and wife, sweethearts, friends. The story of you and me, but with this difference. John and Mary have died and have entered into their new life in spirit." So, this is a long chapter, The Place of Healing, chapter 18. I'm now at the fourth part of it. He is at the place of healings. There are other factors as well to be included in the healing, but the above will suffice to indicate the liaison between, on the one hand, the healer's attuned self, and on the other, the patient's physical and spiritual mind, his brain, nerves and muscles, and the bodily intelligence, which is so intimately associated with the whole process. It is not uncommon to hear of a recovery of an incurable or serious condition being due to the patient's faith, or self-determination and willpower. It is very true that when a sick person has indomitable faith and a strong, positive outlook, not giving in, and striving against weaknesses, we do see recoveries take place which cannot be accounted for medically. That such healings do take place is beyond question, and as we know that no change ever takes place by chance, and without a reason for it, there must be a planned process behind the recovery. In the past, these healings have been attributed to willpower, and left at that. It is reasonable to ask how willpower can be responsible for healing the causes and symptoms of disease, when medical science can do no more. It is begging the question to suggest that it is instinct, or just nature, or that the computer brain has planned it. In the recovery of a condition of a purely physical nature, we have seen how some form of chemical adjustment has been induced to bring about the change, and furthermore, that this must have been accomplished through intelligent direction and control. Neither the patient's mind nor brain has known how to achieve such a result, but it is logical to assume that through the mental attitude of no surrender, a strong stimulus has been given to the bodily intelligence to act. Let us recall that in the healing of a wound there is direction for an increase in output of both red and white blood cells, that there is a stimulation given to the blood to make certain chemical changes in the structures within the wound, and so on. Therefore it follows that with a persistent request from the conscious mind to the brain, and from the brain to the bodily and glandular intelligences, so constant direction is given to the bodily intelligences to maintain a continuous healing endeavor in the ways that are needed. Other implications arise from this supposition. It must be admitted that the bodily intelligence has a high degree of knowledge that it can call upon in times of need, such as combating an infection. It is this knowledge which can be effectively utilized through a sustained demand from the patient's mind to organize, for example, the stimulation of the heart action, improve the circulation, regulate the temperature, increase the activity of the blood in certain areas, etc., to aid nerve centers to increase functions, and so on. However, there is ample evidence that there exists a superior intelligence behind any act of healing, which is far more advanced than even the capacity of the bodily intelligence. When this superior mind is tuned into the patient's conscious mind, it follows that it can communicate instructions to the bodily intelligence direct. This can be understood by healers more simply when we recall that with clairvoyance, pictured impressions are transmitted from spirit to the medium's conscious mind. In the same way, intuitive thoughts are likewise given. So it is reasonable to assume that a flow of thought from spirit can reach the bodily intelligence of the patient through his conscious mind. Another way in which instructions can reach the patient is via the healer, who is attuned to both the patient and the spirit doctor. By means of this attunement, the healer's spirit self and mind are very close to those of the patient, and therefore the patient's conscious mind can be contacted by the healer's mind. This has two important implications. Another way in which implications, sorry. The first is that the spirit doctor can give instructions to the patient's bodily intelligence, how to proceed and deal with the disease problem, using the healer as the means of communication. The second implication is important in relation to the healing of mental conditions, for with these the patient's conscious mind is given corrective thought influences via the healer's spirit mind, which is closely attuned to the spirit mind of the patient. Thus, we have a situation in which the healer's own repository of knowledge and experience can be drawn upon to become an influencing agency, to soothe and calm frustration, give guidance to induce a better sense of perspective, and so help the patient regain a more contented outlook upon life. These observations would not be complete without some reference to the heart. The heart has a very intricately adjusted nervous system and an intelligence of its own, which is intimately associated with all other intelligences. It is responsive to emotional states and can be soothed by thought-given influences. The beating of the heart accelerates with fear and apprehension, and as fears and tensions are subdued, the heart action returns to normal. The overcoming of these conditions can often be attained as the healer talks to the patient in a sympathetic and assured manner. The overcoming of these conditions can often be attained as the healer's task to the patient in a sympathetic and assured manner. The soothing of the mind and spirit from frustrations in the primary way to overcome nervous tension will induce palpitation, just as the healer's comforting words will tranquilize the mind and subdue the rapid heart beating. So by talking to the mind by thought from a spirit level, it is brought into a more happy and more serene state. The heart is very obedient to direction, as witness the betterment coming through the soothing of nervous tension. Through the affinity that is established between the healer's self and that of the patient, the remedial directive reaches the bodily intelligence to regulate the muscular action controlling the body function of the heart. No word need be said. A few moments of purposeful directions is all that is needed to bring about a change in the rhythmical working of the heart valves, and invariably there is a perceptible change for the better. There are other ways of improving the rhythm of the heart through characterized breathing. Here again, thought is the agent to encourage the body to take in refills of cosmic energy for the patient's inner strength and well-being. It follows that where thought is received, there must be a form of intelligence to act upon it. When a healer attunes to the patient, he may place his hand over the heart region and, through his mind, ask the spirit doctor to correct the irregularities and establish normal function. The act of placing the hands over the heart area is not, of itself, the means of bringing about the beneficial change of function. The hands are used to express the intention of the healing within the healer's mind. This can better be explained by the healer feeling that his mind is in his hands and fingers. Similar conclusions can be reached with other heart troubles, and particularly with the thromboses, where the clotting breaks down and disperses, and at the same time there is improvement in the consistency of the blood itself. The effects of phlebitis also readily yield in the same way. So far, this chapter has endeavored to establish that we possess a number of intelligent systems, each capable of independent action, but at the same time combining to act together as a whole. In addition to these, there is that superior spirit intelligence, which can influence and instruct the mind, and bodily intelligence can direct dispersive, constructive, strengthening, and nutritive energies for our well-being, and finally can induce good influencing and guidance. The healing of organic diseases takes place with the full cooperation of the bodily intelligence. The exception may be when the healing energies are able to bring about very rapid dispersal, such as with the growth or other unwanted matter, but in general there is cooperation, and if we accept this as a fact, then it follows that the bodily intelligence is working in harmony with the healing process and can be given direction to further cooperate and implement its own inherent healing potentials. Healers who possess knowledge of the bodily intelligence become conscious collaborators with the healing purposes. At the present time, the majority of healers tend to be passive instruments through whom the healing energies flow. But as the gift of healership improves through more perfect attunement and that conscious reception of intuitive thought directives, so they will fulfill a more cooperative purpose in the healing act. To healers who have been able to gain considerable experience in the field of healing, the art of attunement comes easily as second nature. With this, the ability to receive and impart intuitive thought direction from spirit brings them into the way of becoming more conscious collaborators, and thus able to influence the patient's bodily intelligence to play a more active role in the healing directive that might otherwise do. To explain this process, let us take as an example a patient who has a serious growth, which may be a form of cancer. Although the healer knows that medically there is little or no hope for sufferers of these diseases, he seeks healing to reach the sick one in every way that can be. At no time does he give up hope, but whilst recognizing that the healing may not be possible within the scheme of things, he maintains confidence in the power of spirit to heal to the fullest extent. This applies to both contact as well as absent healing. In contact healing, the healer will place his hands over the area where the growth is located, and his mental directive will be attuned to the act of dispersal. The healer is conscious of this, and the patient is aware of the healing objective, and thereby becomes receptive. There is unity of purpose, and if the dispersal is taking place through the gradual process of changing the atomic energies in the structure of the growth, then through the patient's conscious mind, the bodily intelligence will cooperate by directing additional scavenging leukocytes and phagocytes to the area to carry away the injurious matter, which has now been changed into a new form. We know that under the direction of the bodily intelligence, chemical changes can be induced in the body system, so it cannot be ruled out that under the direction of the spirit intelligence, the bodily intelligence is shown the way to assist in changing the nature of the substance of the growth, in order that it can be assimilated and subsequently excreted. It is because of the untiring devotion of spiritual healers that there have been recorded many cases of cancer cures, which the doctors call spontaneous healing. That cancers can be cured in this way is an accepted medical fact, although the doctors do not know why or how the recoveries occur. There are now established patterns seen in the healing of both cancer and leukemia. For example, with leukemia, it can now be expected with the commencement of spiritual healing that a marked improvement is observed in the blood count. These improvements have been dated from the original day when the healing intercession has commenced. These better periods are called remissions, but which the doctors invariably expect to give way to regressions within 2 years. It is very important that the healing be maintained continuously to prevent regression, so that should occur, it can be speedily overcome. Cases are on record of children suffering from leukemia and being expected to die within a few weeks. But with the directive help of spiritual healing, they have not done so, some having lived for years. In many cases, with the continued good health of the child, the parents have ceased to bring the child to the healer or maintain reports for the continuity of the absent healing. And later, we have heard that a child who has been doing very well has succumbed to a fresh onset of the disease, which might have been avoided had the parents maintained contact with the healer. In treating leukemia in particular, medical practice and spirit healing are complementary to each other. The healer cannot give blood transfusion as the doctors can, or other treatments designed to be helpful, and the doctors cannot give that special strengthening help, the stimulating energies or instructions to the bodily intelligence, directing them how to increase the production of hemoglobin, to deliver healthy leukocytes and maintain the vitality of the patient. Healers will find it helpful to encourage purposeful, characterized breathing for cancer and leukemia patients. In particular, as well as, of course, for sufferers from bronchial complaints, anemia, and indeed for all other ill conditions, but especially for cases of cancer in all its forms. The patient should be shown how to breathe in slowly through the nostrils, expanding the chest, and at the same time he be strongly impressed by the healer to be conscious of breathing and taking in with the air extra oxygen, cosmic force, new strength and healing energy, and when expelling the air to be equally conscious of breathing out waste and disease. The advantage of this characterized breathing are obvious. It sustains the patient's morale so that he is continuously helping the healing process, becoming a cooperative ally with the healing intention. It gives purpose and stimulation to all the bodily intelligences to become active in giving the patient new strength and to cleanse the body of unwanted matter, also to build up the health state and the body's resistance. The patient's relatives can be asked to join in with this special breathing, to keep him company, and to help to maintain the benefit which result. At the risk of repetition, it should be recalled that forces can be directed to affect the chemical change in an organic ill condition. This is demonstrated with the almost universal experience with healers when treating organic conditions, to be aware of a sensing of a strong heat emanating from the healer's hands, with the patient also being aware of such deep heat penetrating his body. Should a thermometer be placed between the healer's hand and the patient's body, no rise in the temperature will be seen, though both the healer and the patients are aware of the exceptional heat. Although this heat cannot be registered on a clinical thermometer, it is nevertheless factual. The heat obviously represents a force. The healer cannot create it at will, and in fact, if he moves his hand away from the affected area, then the sensation of heat vanishes, only to return when the hand again comes back to the affected part. This is significant, for it implies that the supernormal force being directed through the healer only operates when there is a reason for it to do so. No one is able to create an increase in temperature in one small part of the body, i.e. the hand, by willpower and in a manner of seconds, or induce fluctuation of it as described. It is something additional, experienced only through healership. This heat force is characterized to carry out a planned intention. It is purposeful, and in a case of, say, arthritis, has the director of stimulating the blood action, inducing a chemical change in the affected part and dispersing adhesions within the tissues, or bringing about some other desired change. That the patient physically feels this heat is noteworthy, for this indicates that the healing energy has been transformed into a physical expression. The invariable result is the removal or considerable lessening of the painful symptoms. Thus, once more, comes the indication of a cooperation between the healing and the bodily intelligence. It is worth bearing in mind that in arthritis, the main deposit is calcium carbonate. It is a simple molecule, one atom of calcium, one of carbon, and 3 of oxygen. When the force of heat is applied to it, it undergoes a state of change. The heat experienced through a healer is a supernormal heat. It cannot be physically recorded, and it may well be that this spirit quality of heat is able to transform the calcium carbonate deposits from one state into another, which accounts for the remarkable change sometimes observed in the instantaneous removal of cementing with a locked arthritic joint. If this point is established, we should not mentally limit the extent to which the bodily intelligence can be made a partner in healing practice, nor should we limit the methods by which it can be used and how it can profit from any new instruction which can be given to it. With the future evolution of the physical human body, we should expect to see its bodily intelligence progressively evolve too. The healer is justified in asking how this knowledge is going to assist him in his usage by the healing guides, for, remember, a healer is an instrument of healing. He is used by the guide to convey healing energies to overcome affliction. In carpentry, for example, the sharper the chisel used by the carpenter, the finer and more intricate the work he can produce. So it is with the healing instrument being used by the healing guide. It is important to remember that the healer's primary function is to be in an attuned condition with a guide and a patient. If he is not, he is not serving any purpose. With the healer attuned to the patient, the guide is able to use him in quite a number of ways. Conversion of spirit energies into their physical counterpart, the conveying of stimulation, being able to blend more closely with the patient and to assess his outlook. So use the occasion for conveying direction, instruction and purpose to the various intelligences of the patient, and so on. It cannot be denied that via the spirit, direction can be given to the heart and bloodstream. And it is not common within healing experience for thrombosis gravely affecting the patient's life to be dispersed rapidly, sometimes overnight. It is stretching credulity too far to believe that the blood cells, by reason of their individual intelligence, can actively cooperate with the healing directive when the opportunity and right conditions have been established through attunement. Thus, in all healing, we learn to avoid mechanical processes or techniques and instead to harness the total intelligences to the healing intention. As this more advanced form of cooperation with the healing guides is employed and the patient's intellectual faculties used, so more easily will disharmonies and disease be overcome. Here is Harry Edward and his colleagues, Ray and Joan Brown, giving healing to a patient at the sanctuary at Shearer. I hope you can see that. Very interesting, isn't it? Anyway, I hope you have a good Thursday. The next one is chapter 19 and is the place of the guides. Bye bye.